The end of sequels. So Jordan, go ahead and intro us why this might be the case.
So in October, of course, a lot of sequels released and not a lot of titles did as well as their original ones. So this is very interesting. The NPD, had some numbers to share, and of course the NPD is like the US, and previously it was only physical, but sometimes it also accounts digital sales. So we get a way better look at how a game is selling. So on number 1, Battlefield 1 was there, sold really well. It was a 50% increase over Battlefield 4 launch. That's like insane. So Battlefield 1, no problem there. Then we have Mafia 3 on number 2, 20% higher than Mafia's 2 debut. So that's like insane. That's like super good for Mafia 3. And of course, 2K already said that it was their highest selling game, and that was of course excluding Rockstar games, but just really like 2K made games. But then shit hits the fan, because then a lot of games underperformed. We have on number 3, you have Gears of War 4. Gears of War 4 sold 505k units during this period, and in comparison, Gears of War Judgment, and it was of course that spin-off title that there was not a lot of excitement for this game, it was not as good. It sold 620k. So that's like an almost 20% like drop. Then if we look at Gears of War 3 launch sales, more than 2 million. So whoa, this is like 1/4 of that. It's insane for Gears of War 4. Of course, it was during the Xbox 360 days. There were way more consoles sold, but still, this is like pretty significant. Then if we look at, let's say, Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 was a big failure according to the NPD results, selling a mere 182k, and that's like almost a drop of 80% compared to the original, which sold 865k. And remember, that one was released on the Xbox One when it was just a few months old. It also released later on Xbox 360 and PC, but it was just first on Xbox One, and these are like the sales from everything, but still, it's like insane, because of course Titanfall 2 now released on PS4. And if we compare like the two SKUs, you can say that this is like super bad. A lot of people say, okay, EA will probably not produce Titanfall 3 with these results, because they're really struggling. And we of course also see a lot of price drops for the game already.
Yeah.
Then let's look at Rise of the Tomb Raider PS4. That game was of course released on the Xbox One in November 2015, on the same day as Fallout 4, so that didn't really go well for that game, because of course Fallout 4 was a huge hype. Then it released later on PC, picked up some sales, but on PS4 it just totally bombed. 120k sales. This is so bad for that game, because the previous one sold like 5 million in total, like before the remastered happened. So wow, this is like super bad. They really made a bad decision with 1, releasing it on the same day as Fallout 4, and 2, giving Microsoft the exclusive deal. Then we look at Skylanders, and this is interesting because I was also like, who is buying this anymore? And it looks like Activision is just yearly releasing these games, but it's not helping them at all, because the new one sold 66,000 copies, and this is almost a drop of 50%. It's 41, but still like almost half compared to the previous one. That's like super bad. And then we have Skyrim, released on the same day as Titanfall 2, but that is a 5-year-old game, remastered, of course, super popular, but still a lot of people probably played it already. Still sold 400k in October, and it was like a few years on the market in October, because it released at the end of October on the same day as Titanfall 2, and almost sort of double the amount, more than double the amount of Titanfall 2. Man. So let's unpack this a little bit, shall we? So we have Mafia 3, Battlefield 1 performing really well. Of course, Mafia 3. If we look at all the Metacritic scores from all these games, Mafia 3 is the worst, but still was number 2. So we can like kind of see, okay, Metacritics doesn't really matter at all if we look at the grand scheme of things, because of course Titanfall 2 got a lot of praise from the media, but a lot of people were like, okay, I'm fine. I got Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty is coming out the week after that. So
It just
I'm
goes to show how much when you release a game matters.
absolutely.
And if EA is not like learning from this, then they all need to look for new people to run the company, because they could have made so much more money off that game. And it's gonna piss
Absolutely.
me off to the end of time, because you have a game that's nominated over your other game. That should tell you one thing right there. Obviously, people think it's
for the
better.
Game Awards, of course.
Yeah, for the Game Awards. So everyone thinks, a lot of people I think that Battlefield 1, as good as it is, and a lot of people enjoy it, a lot of people liked Titanfall 2 from what I heard a lot better. And so you have a game that people enjoyed, that people really digged over the original, and it sells like crap because you release it around two behemoths of shooters. And yeah, I know you want to make it a behemoth, I get it, EA, but you can't make it a behemoth by putting Goliath right up in front of it as it's an ant that's sitting on like a little tiny branch. You can't just tell that ant to go attack Goliath. It's not a thing. Like you gotta sort of ease it into the process. You know, maybe release as a summer blockbuster. You know how people enjoy summer blockbuster films that are filled with action. That would have made it. That would have made it sell a lot better, I think, in my opinion, because people like action during the summer. So what better thing to do than release a Titanfall during the summer?
And there is no game during the summer. It's like
Exactly.
totally.
Perfect marketing right there. Hire me, EA.
Absolutely.
Apparently, I know more than your guys do. Like Jesus.
Oh man, yeah. It's like interesting, and we are not like talking. We're now talking about October, but I don't want to get a lot into it. But of course, Watch Dogs 2 and Dishonored 2, from what we heard from the UK sales, are also significantly underperforming compared to their original titles. So there's like a trend going on here, and what my takeaways are these. Gears of War 4, I mean, they all have their own like separate stories. I mean, Rise of the Tomb Raider, it's obvious they should have released it on all the platforms when they released the PC version, so in January. Then the game would have totally sold well, would have been a success. Now they are just in between everything, and nobody seems to care because, yeah, it's a year-old game, and how can you sell a year-old game? Yeah, it just is not new anymore, so that doesn't make sense. And a lot of people, PlayStation people, feel like they screwed us over, and yeah, now they want us to buy the game. Of course, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So, and Skylanders, they release it yearly, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the last Skylanders if I look at the sales from this game.
You know your franchise is dead when kids don't even want to bother with it.
Exactly, and that's why I played the Skylanders game, and that's why I also thought, okay, this is probably the case because there are a lot of microtransactions in this game. They're really like squishing the last money or dollars out of the people that do buy these games. So I think they're really in trouble there. So every game has their like same thing. Of course, Titanfall 2, we already went to that. But Gears of War 4, for example, it's just, man, Microsoft, it doesn't work anymore, man. Halo also underperformed compared to the games that Bungie made. Gears of War is underperforming compared to the games that Epic made. It's just not the same anymore, and people want new stuff. So hopefully in 2017, Microsoft will finally wake up and release new stuff, because they can't get away with this. They can't get away with this, and this shows you that again. If this game sells less than Judgment, that a lot of people don't even remember came out, then it's like super bad.
Going back to some of our previous discussions in the past, I think that really just goes to show not only that sequels, they're not necessarily dead, but people want to see a lot more things change in between different iterations. And what that also goes to show, in Microsoft's case, 'cause I think this is really bad for Microsoft especially, is that exclusives that are different matter a lot. I mean, we go back to the E3 where the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 were revealed. Yes, Xbox One and the Xbox brand, they kind of shot themselves in the foot majorly, but with all the TV BS and the DRM and all that stuff, right? That's obvious. But even if they didn't have all that, and they just announced all the stuff that they announced also on top of all that, they still wouldn't have sold near as amount of copies of, I mean, not copies, but as much consoles as the PlayStation 4. For one very big reason. It's all about the freaking games. And it's not about sequels. Like, yes, you know, people, they like Halo and all that stuff. But they don't like it as much when you cram it down their throats every single time you have a chance. And that's where Sony does a great job, because they have a bunch of random new things constantly coming out. Maybe they don't release really quickly, you know, greatness awaits, guys. I always have to bring that up because it's so true. But at least you have something to look forward to instead of, oh, is this another Halo? Oh, it's just another Gears of War. Oh, it's another Forza.
Right now, you don't know what you get. I mean, you know that what you get. It's like some bunch of games that you can live without. But yeah, I make this point a lot. Of course, Horizon, if you look at that game, you want it. You can. I never spoke to someone that saw that game and wasn't impressed whatsoever. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things where a company has to sell you their vision, and throughout this entire generation, Microsoft has not sold a vision.
No,
their vision is their vision is they literally like went to McDonald's and they ordered a freaking McChicken and they wanted to sell it to everyone else secondhand. Like that McChicken has already been reproduced so many times over in the chicken factory it came from, and you're trying to resell it again to the poor chump that wants to buy that McChicken. You ain't gonna sell that McChicken. Like, I don't know how much sense that makes, but you know what? That McChicken, it wants love. It ain't gonna get love, and that's why Xbox is still behind, and that's why it's so crucial. And that goes back to the Game Awards show. I want Phil Spencer to come out with something new. And it's very important because they need to sell a vision moving forward. And if they don't sell a vision, which is another key marketing thing, it's like some of these guys don't do, like, I've never took a marketing class. You have to sell a vision. You have to set it up in the consumer's mind that in the future I'm going to get X. Or in the future I'm going to feel X. Or in the future this is going to improve my life. And Sony's amazing. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing with that. I mean, if you look at their E3 press conference, they showed like Spider-Man. No, we're gonna see that somewhere at the end of 2018 or something. But a lot of people are excited and they know that game is coming, so they can invest in the console right now. Have a lot of other games to play, but in the end, they have that title. And right now, I mean, that's also my point with Scorpio, and I know that we like go a little bit off topic here, but if Microsoft released the most powerful console, but then doesn't really have the games to support it, good luck, man. Sony will still have their own audience because they have the games that everyone wants to play. Okay, I think interesting. So all the games have different stories. I mean, there are just so many mistakes were made during this thing, and Bethesda it's just laughing there because the Skyrim remastered. Okay, I'm not a game developer, but man, I mean, from what we heard, it still has issues. I mean, it's like all profit that they're making right now with selling this game.
And from what it looked like, they didn't even really put much work into it because it seemed like all the performance was just so buggy all over the place, and the improvements that they made literally looked like mods you can download. Like it just seemed like they probably just download those mods and tweaked them a bit so people couldn't realize it, and then released it with bugs.
Yeah, and the wolves were just way off and stuff like that. Anyway, so they're just fine, and EA is fine with Battlefield, but so what I think will happen maybe next year, and we also see this with Dishonored 2 and Watch Dogs 2. I think October and November will be super uninteresting going forward. All the games that are selling well right now are Battlefield, Pokemon, Final Fantasy will probably sell really well because that only huge franchises that have like this huge legacy that everyone knows that nobody can get around. I mean, Call of Duty sales are down, but it's still the second best-selling game of the year right now in the UK. So it's not like it's selling really bad. It just compared to the previous ones, not selling really well. But if you have like a Titanfall 2 in there or like a Rise of the Tomb Raider, you can better just release that in January or September. Watch Dogs 2, if it would have released in February, everyone would be all over this game. But right now, if I get home, I just gonna play some Battlefield, and I have Final Fantasy's coming up. I play some Pokemon on the side. You have a lot of other games that you know are a must buy. If you're really into the Battlefield community, into the Call of Duty community, you're just investing so much time in that you're not gonna be looking at a Watch Dogs.
And the thing is, I'm a hardcore gamer, and I don't even want to try out any of the new games that are released. And like Dishonored 2, as much as I love Dishonored, it's taken so long for me to get to it because there's so much other things to do. Like I feel like a dick for still not buying The Witcher 3's Blood and Wine DLC.
Yeah,
there's so much stuff to do. It's and just also, like...
And also like free-to-play games and MMOs like Destiny and The Division and games that just take a lot of time, they become way more popular. So a lot of people just spend all their time probably in that game and then take a little vacation to go into a single-player title like Dishonored. But with new games that are like these sort of services, these sort of games that ask a lot of time of you, then you will have that vacation later, and you don't need these games so early. And I think that, Watch Dogs released in May, and I looked at like what came out around that time, just simply nothing. Titanfall, the first one, released in March. It was the first big exclusive on my Xbox One. Then it sold really well. Rise of the Tomb Raider in January did really well, and the first Tomb Raider reboot released in March. So looking at the previous, why these games did so well, that's all because they released in a time when not a lot of competition was there, or like the industry was so different. Right now we have Watch Dogs, Titanfall, we have so many games. So I think it will be super boring next year. It will be interesting, but I think that just next year it will be Battlefront. We will probably see maybe a new Pokemon game for the Switch, the Stars game maybe. We will see the new Call of Duty, and maybe Ubisoft is not even going to try next year, or maybe Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed can fit in there if they release in October, and that will be it. Just big franchise.
Yeah, I think it also has to do a lot with ego. Like these people that are, EA is like, oh, we're EA. Titanfall 1 did great. We could easily release it in between these two massive behemoths of shooters. Like they don't really think it through in their brain. Like even if it is a really great game, like we'll tell them that, okay, it's a great game, EA. We get that. But think of it this way: what happens if you release it in March? It's gonna sell more, guaranteed. Why is it gonna sell more? Because you just didn't stack your entire portfolio on like 1 month. Like even with Star Wars The Old Republic, that comes out in December. Like that makes sense as far as the timing goes, because Rogue One, the Star Wars story, comes out December 16th. So having their expansion release right around a Star Wars film is exactly what they did last year, and it worked really well. Mm-hmm. So that makes sense, and that's also December, so that's a separate month. But for them to think, okay, we're gonna stack the rest of our portfolio on this 1 month, and because we're just amazing people, it's either massive gross incompetence, or they
I think ego is a huge,
or the ego, or it's ego.
I totally believe that, because Bethesda, they have like this press conference right now. They believe, okay, Dishonored did really well. A lot of people love it. We have a huge marketing budget. We can make this work. We are fucking Bethesda, right? Last year we had Fallout 4. Now we just show that we believe that this is the next big franchise. But I'm sorry to break it to you, but Dishonored is not for everyone. And these games have to appeal to as broad audience as... if your game appeals to the Call of Duty players, then you have like a huge audience. And Watch Dogs 1 had that, but with the weird direction they went with the sort of colorful game, and of course the first one didn't really help because not a lot of people like that. It just, Ubisoft is also like, we need to have a huge title in November as well, because everyone will release in November, and Rockstar will we even forgot fucking Red Dead Redemption 2 next year. They will probably release in November as well, because they will be like, we have the biggest game right here. You will all bow for us, because we can actually do it. And I think that they actually can do it. They have, of course, the big ego, but yeah, they can get away with it. And Ubisoft is like,
I don't think so. I think they're gonna release sometime in September. Grand Theft Auto 5 was September.
No, I don't believe that. I mean, they released GTA 5, like the remastered, also in November. So they've done it before, and it's fall, right? It's like the last weeks of September, and we have Destiny 2 coming around that time. So I don't think you don't want to be around that time. And of course, it's Rockstar, they're bold, but no, I don't think that they will do that.
It could also be, honestly, summer as well. Like I don't see them.
Yeah, already said fall. No.
That's true. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, if it's fall, I still think it's gonna be September. Like you're right though.
Like the last week of September, right? Why
they could have a massive ego and just drop it, like you say, in November or whatever, or October.
And everyone will just go away. Everyone will just, okay, man, go ahead, take this November spot. They will probably release a few weeks. I already made a video about this, like predicting what day they were going to choose, and it will probably be like 1 week or 2 weeks after Call of Duty.
That damn Rockstar privilege. They're never gonna learn about the whole ego thing because they're just Rockstar. But yeah, I mean, it really comes down with, just to wrap things up with sequels. I don't think sequels are necessarily completely dead. I think there's two things that are factored into it. Number one, how different they are from each other. You can't just go from Gears of War Judgment to Gears of War 4 and be this kind of the same thing. Like they played it super safe and they suffered for it. And also on top of that, the Xbox One's is not doing great. And so with Project Scorpio on the corner, hopefully that improves things. But if they don't sort of enhance their lineup, then it's gonna suffer as well to a certain extent. When it comes down to other sequels, we saw Mafia 3 do great, but I think that's because when it released, there wasn't a whole lot. I mean, there was some stuff, but it wasn't major things. And so it had sort of free reign, and because it was somewhat hyped, they had a lot of promotional material for that. It was able to get a lot of copies flying off the shelf, and even though it wasn't that great of a game, story-wise it was, gameplay-wise it wasn't, it was able to get enough positive reviews to get people to purchase it, and even beforehand people were purchasing it, and before they even saw reviews. And then we have issues like with Titanfall, which is the other factor, timing. You can't release games that are smaller titles, not necessarily super small, they're not indie, but they're medium size. You can't release them around behemoths and expect them to perform. It's not the fault of the game. They're gonna probably not do a Titanfall 3 because of it, and that's a damn shame, because the whole fault of all of this falls on EA. It's not Titanfall 2. It would have sold like gangbusters if they would have delayed it to summer of next year, or January, or February, or March of next year. It would have sold like gangbusters, but because they just put their balls on the table and were like, we got this, guys, they just threw their entire portfolio, and it just did not work at all. They just stacked too hard, and people were like, I already have a shooter. Why do I want Titanfall 2 right now? And I'm sure sales are going to pick up later on too. That people are going to buy it when it's like massively on sale. And
it's already
that's the same thing with Dishonored 2 though. It released around a time where there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's a medium-sized title, and it could be a massive hit if it's released in the right month, but it wasn't. Timing and the difference between the games is all what makes a sequel a possible hit or a possible failure. And in this case, we saw examples of both. And in this month, we saw timing disasters that if they don't change coming into next year, I don't know how they keep their job, because there's so much dollars that they just left on the table because they were so egotistical and they had their heads so far up to where the sun don't shine that they just did not see the light, which was delaying it for another month and making your investors wait a little bit to get a massive return later on, because they would have waited.
But on the other hand, I mean, March and February are getting crowded as well right now. It's like figuring stuff out, but November and October were like the no-brainer. It's like this is like the case for so many years that you release your biggest title of the year then. But I think that will change. And I think that, for example, if we look at the excitement for Horizon and For Honor, new games, and yeah, you will play that game because you can't go back to Gears of War 3 and have the same type of experience. It's just a totally new experience, and I think that in the end, I mean, it sucks right now to see a lot of developers and publishers losing a lot of money, but in the end it will be good because now they see, okay, we can release the same shit over and over and over again, and this will mean that some franchises that I now love, for example Watch Dogs 2, really like that game, we will probably not see Watch Dogs 3. I'm okay with that because they now have room to experiment again, because if we look at Ubisoft's portfolio, all the games that did really well were new games. The Division, Watch Dogs, so probably For Honor will do really well as well. I think they will now focus more on new IPs, and in the end that's like better for everyone, I think.
Yep.
Because it's a huge risk, but we get new experiences. And right now this generation is the same shit over and over and over again, and finally it is going down. It's like finally people stand up and say, I'm not gonna buy this same shit, man. And Battlefield 1 did something different. I mean, it's still the same game, but they don't release that yearly, and they had this whole new like setting, and that made it special. But for games like, yeah, I mean, we can like beat the drum like many times, but it will be a super interesting time, and I think that this holiday is super interesting. Next year it will be less interesting. A lot of people will move there, quote unquote, big title. I think Bethesda was planning to release Prey, for example, in the fall, but I think that they will just get that out of there, because as they think that this is going to be a great game, but a lot of people will simply not care, because in the holiday we have a lot of other titles to do. Everyone is running their promotions, all the free-to-play games. I mean, we heard Paladins, for example, 4 million players or people are playing that. Well, maybe they did not, maybe those players were otherwise spending time in Watch Dogs, or for example. So there's like so much competition. You want to find the right spot, you want to find the biggest audience you can, and I think that just the traditional sense of releasing games in the holiday doesn't make a lot of sense. And maybe the sales will pick up. Maybe Dishonored 2 during Christmas will sell extremely well, Watch Dogs 2 as well. I hope that that's the case, but I think that publishers that are saying that to their investors right now, it's not about the first week of sales, it's about the longevity of the title. I think that they know that they are kind of like, crap, man.
They all know they screwed up.
Yeah,
they all know they screwed up, and that's really good moving forward, because like you said, it will make them experiment maybe more. Like those series that get canceled will likely cause an experimentation to happen with another possible start to a franchise.
Yeah. And
eventually we'll get to the same point again, and we'll look back in history and be like, you guys just repeated it. You guys didn't listen. You guys got egotistical again, and look what happened. And it's going to happen over and over and over again. They're never going to learn, but what's good is we're exiting this particular phase, hopefully. And so now we're going to see possibly more and more experiments happen. It's going to be more and more spread out, and we're going to benefit from it at least for 5-6 years until they build up more franchises and they do it all again. But hey, at least we can enjoy the next 5 years or so before they screw up again.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, and if I look at myself, and if I look at the games that came out, I mean, I'm like in this privilege that I like get a lot of games to talk about it for IGN, and I'm on like one of the biggest Dutch radio stations, so I have to like play these games to know what I'm talking about, so I get these games. But I totally understand that. I mean, if I look for myself, what games am I excited about? And that is Pokemon, because I really like Pokemon and they finally changed something, so I'm gonna play that. And that's For Honor, and that's Horizon, new games. I'm excited about new experiences. And if I have an Xbox One and I'm not excited about Gears of War, because I totally know what I'm gonna get. I totally know what will be in that box, what will be my experience, and that's not worth it. That's like going to the same movie over and over and over again. You know what you're gonna get, and that's not a lot of fun to do that, because you already did it.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
especially for Microsoft, it will be interesting. But anyway, we can go on for forever. I think it will be interesting to like predict the holiday of 2017 at some point, because I think we already have a huge I think we already know all the titles that will be released then. But I will just put it in the doc and we will have a look at it later.
Exactly, guys. And so that does it for